Black Myth Wukong went from a single gameplay trailer to completely taking over the gaming world. No massive publisher, no live service grind, a relatively small team. Just jaw-dropping visuals, brutal combat, and a mythological world most games never dare to touch. But the game didn't just succeed because it looked good. Something much deeper happened behind the scenes. So how did Black Myth Wukong turn ancient legend into a global gaming phenomenon? So before we get started, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, as to answering the question, before we get there, of course, we have to acknowledge that the gameplay is fun, the combat was interesting. We could create different builds. We could use many different transformations. So there were different ways to approach the combat and the challenges. There were a lot of stuff to discover. Exploring the environments was extremely interesting. So the game was fun to play. Okay, this is why the game was successful, I would say, to this level. So the game was fun to play. That's the main reason. So here on this channel, we're focusing on environment art and art in general. So that's what we're going to focus on. But I just want to make it absolutely clear that the game was a global phenomenon because it was that good, right? So anyone who played the game knows very well. The game was not perfect. There were some stuff that were irritating, that were annoying. For me, it was some invisible collisions, invisible walls that I really think could have been avoided very easily. But I guess it's just a matter of they ran out of time to polish this specific aspect. Some people were annoyed that there were no maps, no mini-maps. I personally loved it. The level design was very confusing and intricate, but that was kind of part of the fun, that you could discover other things to do in a map that you've spent a lot of time and that you basically finished. That was great. Like, I loved it. The boss fights, like there's so many great things to say about the games. But today, we're focusing on the authenticity and the level of detail that they brought to their environments and their art assets. Okay, so first we are looking at the work of Zhu Weiwei. I hope I'm pronouncing in an acceptable manner, so pardon me if it's not the case. And there is a lot of work from the artist, and we're going to look into a lot of it. But first, we're going to stop at this one. So this is concept art, of course, but I want to point out the absolute importance of references. And this is like a big part of this video. We will constantly get back to this because concept art is basically the first phase, right? Exploration along with art direction, and then concept art so that everybody can see what will it look like. And concept art, especially, let's be honest, it's a realistic game, and it is also based on some ancient real locations, temples, architectural styles. So it's not just out of the artist's imagination, right? So there is a lot of artistic liberties and choices, but a lot is taken from reality. And this is the importance of references. So this is a very nice piece of concept art. If I zoom too much, it becomes blurry, but you know, it's a very, very nice piece. And you can see all the callouts, all the material and reference callouts. So this is not just like, you know, if you give that, and I'm on purpose making it blurry, if you submit that to an environment artist, a 3D modeler, well, you know, it's going to be that typical tile, roof tile that you see in Asia. So it's going to be very generic. right? It will look like, well, all the all the stuff you see on ArtStation. No offense to anybody, but you know, it's part of a lot of games, and it is part of a lot of students and aspiring artists' journey to do this very specific type of roof. So that's why we're starting with this. But this is a little bit more precise, and I wouldn't say original, but this is not what you see everywhere, right? So this is because it's typical, because it's historically or architecturally accurate. So those are the references. Okay, and that is part of the work. Concept art is not just a beautiful mood image that some people mistaken for, oh, that's the job of concept artists. That's the job of an art director. And yes, they do this early in the production, in pre production, so that the whole team knows, okay, this is the direction we're going in. But the actual team of concept artists are not doing that. They might do these pieces by the middle of production or the end, or anyway, further down the road. But during production, they're doing practical work that serves the 3D team. So you have a lot going on in this. This is one image, right? Actually, it's a bit more than that. There's so much information, so much to learn from this. It's amazing. So you see another piece of concept art, and then a more clear, because you see, this is not clear, right? And it's not the artist's fault. There's, there are some limitations, but then the information is communicated. This is how this is layered. Okay, those little slabs of slate or argile or whatever the material is in reality. This is how it will look like. So it's not exactly like that. The artist didn't spend like a week doing it exactly like the reference. Just a call out here. It's clear, and we move on to the next, right? Then there is a sign here, which of course traditionally there's something written on it. So this is, and I know it's a bit blurry because it's a very big image with, containing smaller images. So you have another little precision, right? Another little detail added. Then you have this central piece here, which is detailed right here with more information. And here is something that I really love, and I'm so happy that the artists are sharing. So this is what a very valuable concept artist brings to the team. It's, of course, mainly their skills as a 2D artist, as a concept artist, but some knowledge of 3D. So you do not need to become an expert at concept art plus 3D modeling with all the intricate techniques, just for basic stuff, right? And I mean, we could argue that this is maybe not the absolute most basic things, but look, it's a blockout, okay? But these intricate pillars and the ornamentation that are typical to this architectural style, they are quite intricate, and it needs to be communicated. Which type, which angle, what length, what, like, how will it look like? And then you have further artistic details, which comes later, right? You don't start to sculpt stuff like that immediately. You need to understand the volume. You need to understand how will you break down the building, so that you can have a modular kit, so that you work smart. So all of that, this is phenomenal. This is one image, okay? And it conveys all of that. And here we have a very important part. If you have not noticed, it's here, right? And it's obviously a big part of this piece, and it has a mythological significance, which I am not an expert of this era and this particular culture, so I do not know all the specifics. I just know it ended up in game, and it's fantastic, right? And you have a reference, a very, very nice reference, which has been used in the concept, right? And you have also some more references of statues of how either the head will look like. So we have additional information here, and that is only for the concept art. Now let's hear it from the channel's partner, NordVPN. We have a great deal for you. 75% off and 3 months extra. Also with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Let's look at some of the features. So, uninterrupted streaming, next generation encryption, strict no-log policy. Very easy to set up, literally only a few clicks and you'll be done. Alerts about leaked credentials. One account, 10 devices. You'll have enough to connect everything in your household. It also comes with an anti-malware tool directly integrated called Threat Protection Pro. So that's a big bonus. Now let's break down this offer. Those prices are in Canadian dollars, but you will see the prices in your country's currency and the deal will be the same. This is what you should look for right here. So remember that you have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you can try it out with peace of mind. NordVPN is a trusted company. And as you can see, you have from 73% to 75%. Of course, you have different plans. You can choose the one that suits your need. So those prices are for the 2-year plans. If we look at the 1-year plans, it's also very good. You save from 60 to 69%, which is a lot. So you see the prices. Still very reasonable, very good offer, and 3 extra months. And finally, let's look at the regular price. This is a great offer. You'll be able to browse the internet freely with peace of mind. You will have access to region-locked content, and you will save a lot of money. So don't wait, get the deal. And here we have the work of the 3D artist, which I'm sorry, I cannot read that alphabet, so I cannot even attempt to pronounce the artist's name. But this is just fantastic, right? Because this is what I used on the thumbnail. A great screenshot from the game. And we can appreciate, see, you see the statue, you see the fire, and it's in very high resolution, so I can scan quite a bit. So we see one side, we see all the, well, basically everything that was conveyed by the concept art. We see everything coming together, right? We have those statues, we have this little furnace that is held, and that's part of the pillar. It's been, I would say, maybe slightly simplified, right? There was like more going on the concept art with more statues. It's been translated, right? You have to understand concept art, even as precise and as experienced as the artist can be. Then you always have to translate it in 3D, which is like, you know what? It won't make sense because it would have been way too high, right? That's probably the reasoning, because this needed to be part of the pillar of the, just, you know, by the entrance. So there was no way to add this extra stuff on this axis, right? So they cut there. Then we see the writing here, which is all weathered, all very nice and integrated in this environment. You have this wonderful central piece, which has a lot of details, and we can catch a glimpse of those tiles. And it's exactly, as far as we can tell from here, it's exactly like on the reference, right? It's exactly like on the concept art. And you see here also those beams interconnected, interwoven with some of the ornamentation, and like just the general shape, the architectural logic of how it is held together. It's not just imagined, it is studied, right? From the concept artist, which also studied it from somewhere, which we will see later. So this is just a fantastic piece. It's one of the great screenshot. It's one of the great screenshots from the game. And we have more. So we have a fantastic view of this whole piece in a elevation view, right? So we can see it very clearly. We can see again our little friends holding the furnaces as part of the, and you see something interesting. It's not at the same level, so that probably has a significance. Then we have the writing. Then we have this beautiful piece. I wish I knew the name. I'm sorry. I did some research. It's kind of limited, the resource we have in English. I would really love to learn more, but I can, at this point, only appreciate the work of the artists. And see here, it also has been optimized, of course. So basically, it is not like thousands of tiles. It is a material using displacement, I would guess, and then some tiles here and there added, some groups of tiles, which we can recognize in some cases, right? It's here to add some, adding geometry to add some height variation, right? So it's not static. And if we go back here, we could see some of it here and there, right? We can see. Here the angle is kind of impossible, making it impossible to see, but here we can see. So really that's the strategy that was used. Additional pieces, which is typical, right? And yeah, we can appreciate all the details, all the very fancy and detailed ornamentation. And of course, this is the same as this is mirrored, and this is the same. Of course, there's really no point of doing different ones, right? And then there's a statue here, and then there's this other ornamentation, which is repeated here and there. And that is a lot of details, right? We can see all the detailed parts that I outlined. And this is just great. Everything is given, even this small piece, it is given like the royal treatment, right? It has a lot of details, a lot of time was spent, and a lot of care and love was poured into this. And here we also have a look at the statues themselves, like separated from everything. And again, we can see the level of detail. So now back to the concept artist work. I included a lot of their work on my board. I'm not going to cover all of it. I will make the board available and everybody will be able to take a look and enjoy, because there's so much. If I cover everything, the video will be 3 hours long. So I want to show some of the work and some of the practical work more than anything, which is really what makes the life of the environment art team so much easier, right? Such as this. If you have this, of course, you're gonna know what to do. You're gonna do something, but then there will be some back and forth. There will be did you consider that there was actually like, dimension here? It's not just like super flat, and it's just not a little bit. It's actually quite a lot. So all of that is already answered. It's like pre-answering questions, right? So I want to go over this one, which has a lot of 3D, functional 3D, to again answer questions on how exactly am I gonna build this roof, right? Because it can be very tricky. This is a very nice exterior shot, and you can appreciate the scale, right? And if you played the game, you remember where that is. It's towards not exactly the end of the game, but it's like in the later stages. And yeah, the scale at this point of the game is just massive, and it's very intimidating. And again, you have the importance of references and even the wear and tear, the damage. It is detailed, it is explained and conveyed to the art team. And this is fantastic. This I love so much. So this one is actually a close up, but here it is slightly different. It is a view of the side. And if we go to this one, it is also a view of the side, but of this inner side, in which, well, the team needs to know that, by the way, there's going to be a statue right here. It's not just a plain wall, right? So this information needs to be conveyed. This is so smart. Like I'm applauding the artist who thought about that. That is just great. Like you don't need to do the other facade. You just do something like this, and so much information is conveyed. So this is from another artist. We're gonna take a look at the work of Yilin Dong. And again, this is just so fantastic. I'm gonna repeat it once more. The importance of references, and you have it basically everywhere in these artists' work. And also functional, top view, perspective view, side view, and a reference. So this is how you have an efficient team. This is how you can reach a very high level of quality, because there is no wasted time in, like, it's an optimized workflow, right? Like experienced artists do have that. I'm not saying that game science invented that or anything like that, but for a relatively small team to reach that level of polish and of very high quality, uh, that is really not surprising to see how well they work together, how smart they work together as an art team. So you have again very good references that were maybe not, like, this is not super clear, right? No offense to the artist, but then you're like, ah, okay, I see exactly what that is, and I see how it's supposed to look, how I'm gonna approach this, right? And now you have like a beauty shot, beauty concept art, very, very nice. And then you have lots of functional concept art, which is what concept artists should have in their portfolio, right? If you show these things, then video game studio will call you for interviews, because that's what they hire people, that's what they pay people for. It's not just doing pretty images, right? That comes later. Most of the amazing art station profiles that you see, those are very seniors or art directors, and they have spent years doing these things, right? So that's the grind, not the boring grind, like that's the experience. And then they might allow you to spend more time on these amazing, and even with the background and everything, which are amazing portfolio pieces, right? The scale, like the little guy in front of a huge structure. This is what all the young artists are looking at and, looking forward to do. But if that's what you have in your portfolio and you don't have these things, well, they're not going to call you for interviews. Okay? So here we focus on solutions, on answers, and on, like, creating a plan, and be successful, right? And you might not be working on a video game, of course, on your own, but act as if, right? You don't need to create a character and animations and the combat, and that's not what I mean. But if you're doing environment concept art, well, imagine, put yourself in the shoes of someone who works as part of a team, and imagine, and like, there's a lot of information on the internet, right? YouTube is full of interviews with art directors, concept artists, and devs in general, saying how to start your career, basically. So honestly, just listen, like, trust people who are in the industry, and they're telling you this is really what you should be doing. It's either exactly their role, and in this case, for me, I'm not a concept artist. It's what I hear from people who are working as concept artists and art directors and so on and so forth. So it is just so interesting and fascinating And this is how you get to these amazing environments in game. If you are interested in learning how to apply the techniques that we're covering while analyzing those games, I have created a course in which I show everything step by step. There are no time lapse, nothing is done off screen. I take the time to explain what we do and why we do it. I show best practices. And we are creating a small environment from A to Z. I'm showing every single step of how it's done on a professional production. I can answer any questions you might have on multiple platforms. So if you are interested, there is a link in the description and there's a discount available with the code provided. So here is kind of the secret of the sauce, if I may say. Of course, as we have mentioned, the game ended up being extremely fun to play. The controls were pretty smooth, combat was nice. It was a good game. But it's not like it's the only studio who released a good game. But there is definitely something special about this game. We can now say that it is the first AAA super high quality game from a Chinese studio and from a small team, estimated at around 130 people at the time of release. The team was extremely talented and they produced a very beautiful game. But again, there is a bit more to it. So let's look at the first part of this article that basically says that it was a small team, small studio, and they didn't have a lot of money. So what they did was producing this trailer that you have seen. If you're watching this video, chances are you have seen this trailer exactly during the pandemic while we were all locked down. That definitely helps contribute to its popularity. Everybody in the industry that I knew at the time were well aware of that crazy 13-minute trailer from an unknown Chinese studio. Of course, there were some doubters, right? Like it's always the case when a studio didn't have any pedigree, or let's be very fair and honest, they had released games, but they were basically gacha mobile games. So that is very different than a console AAA single player game. But everybody was blown away by 13 minutes of gameplay. So they were in pre-production probably, but they had something very nice to show, and they did. And it is referred to as the one of the most successful marketing campaigns that any game developing company has ever performed. And that is true. They had, if you can check this link, this is from IGN. That's where I saw it first myself too. And it sits at 10 million views right now, 5 years ago. So it was not done only to hype the game. So they did that to attract numerous investors, but they also received support from provincial governments across China for them to take advantage of their historical site. And I spoke with a friend from China, and I learned that some of those historical sites are just not accessible. It is not like a privileged access, it's a unique access. Okay? So the public cannot go there. It is protected, it is completely exclusive. So they had the opportunity to visit, to go, and to do 3D scanning. So they did extensive 3D scans because you can understand the amount of work that goes into it, right? We have covered in the video buildings, but on each buildings, each structure, there are numerous ornaments, statues, extremely detailed asset. So it technically it could have been possible with only artists doing from scratch, but the game probably would not have released yet, right? It's like that much more work would have been needed. So they had access, they had funding, and they worked with the cutting edge technology. And we can see some examples. I will just go over some of these examples. And as you can see, this has been modified quite a bit. Here you have this statue that is from a real statue. And here, this is a very cool example, because as much as it preserved the identity, it preserved a lot of things, right? They also, well, they changed the layout. They made it into a video game. So just a very brief word on this technology, which is photogrammetry. I remember back in 2015 when megascans became very popular, a lot of artists were like, we're going to be out of jobs. This is the end. We're not going to be able to, like, what's the point in training young artists and going to school, and like, video game art is dead. Well, it's been like now 11 years, 10, 11 years. And we are now facing a new technology, which is AI, which is not the topic of this video at all. I don't want to get into this, but I just want to point out, as different as those technologies are, there was and there is the same discussion. And I'm not going to get into AI, by the way, now. There will be other videos on AI pertaining concept art, character art, 3D art in general. We will be discussing those topics. But photogrammetry did not cut jobs. Even in foliage and vegetation, it did not eliminate jobs. Did it reduce jobs per se? I don't have data. I cannot say yes or no. My opinion is as good as yours. But from what I know, yes, mega scans, for instance, has been widely used. I know large studios are using photogrammetry, but once you have a scan, there is a lot of work to do. That's already one thing. But also, for a lot of things, you don't take the scan one for one. Like, it's not scan, clean up, poof, in the engine. It is the case for small props, small, foliage, organic kind of assets. Yes, it is the case in many of those circumstances. Yes, it does happen for some of those. And in the past 10 years, some young artists in studios thought that they would do 100% of the assets, and they learned that, oh no, we have a bank, we have a collaboration with a studio who does photo scanning, photogrammetry, and there are a lot of, let's call it how it is, grunt work that will not be done by artists anymore. But those artists are still on the payroll, and they are still focusing on other assets. They are putting together part of the scanned assets and integrating it with all the custom environment, assets, props, and all of that stuff. So this is how game science, as a small team, could get amazingly detailed environments, and they could focus on the right things, which is basically optimization, which is making sure everything works together, follows the art direction. And I think whether you like the game, whether you love the game, or whether you were quite critical about the game, we cannot debate that the game doesn't look good and doesn't run smoothly, right? So that is already an accomplishment. So that game did phenomenally well because of talented devs that worked together, worked smart, and came to a result that was smooth, that was fun, and also, let's say, that was different than everything on the market, right? And it really was like a breath of fresh air. If we see and if we consider this is the first game, let's be honest, it's their first AAA game, okay? It's their first high-quality console game. Let's call it this way. No disrespect to mobile game or a certain type of product, console PC games, or another type of product. They are not comparable. All right, period. There's just no debate. So this game is the first PC console game of the studio, and we can only imagine what they have in store for us for the next one, which has been announced or teased, might I say. And we are just eagerly waiting, but take your time, do just as good of a job or even better if you can. And I mean, we're just gonna line up and buy the game and play the game and praise it. So There is much more on my board that you can explore. I will make it available in the next days. Check it out. It is very interesting. It is different than the kind of breakdowns that we have usually with modular kits and trim sheets and stuff like that. It's more about the planning and the direction that they took. And there we are. We have examined how Black Myth Wukong came to this high level of quality because they paid attention to the smallest details. They worked smart, they worked hard, of course, but also they had access to unique locations where they scanned some assets and they implemented those very well in their environments. So hit the like button, hype the video, subscribe, and there will be more breakdowns, tutorials, and analysis on the channel. Shout out to the members of the channel, and you are all welcome to join. Additional perks will be added very soon.